Hi, glad you could join me today. If you'd like to paint along with me, there are links in the description to the paper and paints I'm using, but whatever you have around will work just fine. We're using acrylics on canvas paper today. As you can see on the screen before you, I'm just kind of penciling in what I want the composition of this painting to be. We're going to do a few little mountains. The ones on the outside are going to be in the background, the ones in the middle are going to be in the foreground, and we're going to have some trees that kind of wrap around and frame the painting. And maybe we'll add something else when we get there. We can always decide to change things later. We're going to have a little bit of a river running through the middle. Now we're moving on to that sky. I decided to go with some nice sunset colors for today's sky. I really like those colors. Some nice reds, some oranges, some yellows. Maybe we'll find where the sun lives. Maybe we're going to put it... Oh, now we're into a yellow ochre, which is a nice transparent color. It's good for blending. And you'll kind of see that happen. It blends very well with the red. And then finally we're just going to go in with a little bit of yellow. That's where that sun's going to live. Blend that out a little bit. I'm just using some sideways strokes. You can try other things. Maybe swirl your brush or try some different movements. That could be fun. Now, I decided to keep going with some vibrant colors for this painting. So we went with some nice bright blues for those mountains in the background. And we're going to go with a slightly darker blue for the mountains that are in the foreground. And you can still see that that sun's just peeking over the edge of that mountain right there. That's where the light's going to come from in our painting. And all the decisions we make past there, we have to remember that the light's coming from the right side of our painting. So what I'm doing now is just finding where this mountain lives. I'm deciding where I want it to go. Your mountain can go anywhere you like. This is going to be the shadowed side of the mountain. So we're going to put in a little bit of a darker color. And for today, we're actually going to leave the front side of the mountain, where the light's hitting, a pretty strong white color. I thought it looked pretty nice. Maybe there's some snow up there. We don't know. You can make up little stories for your paintings. Now we're going to go into some emerald green and just kind of change up those shadows, blend them in, and show some difference between the darks and the lights. And maybe there are some spots that the light's going over the ridge of that mountain a little bit, and it's catching just a little bit more light. Maybe it's a little less steep in some spots. Adding these little things to your painting can do a lot for them. And we're just going to continue to do that for a little bit, and then after that's finished being blended out to where I like it, we're going to move on to the front side of that mountain, which, like I said, we're going to leave pretty white for today's painting, because I thought it looked so good with this stark contrast between the blue, the white, and the very bright but colorful sky. And there I've kind of started to add some texture to those background mountains. We'll go back and do a little bit more of that later. Adding things like a little bit of extra texture to your background colors and not leaving anything too solid of a color can do a lot of wonders for your painting. Now I decided to scrub in some of that sky color, because that's going to be reflected off. Maybe there's some snow there, and the sky colors is getting reflected off of that. And there's me adding a little bit of a texture to those mountains in the background. And that's about all we're going to do with the mountains for today. Just a touch more, blending out those colors. Wanted to get a little bit of a blue color in there. Kind of make it make sense with the rest of our mountain. And there you see I'm doing the same but opposite with the back side of our mountain where that shadow lives. I'm adding some of that white color that we used, giving our mountain a little bit more texture. Now, like I said, we're going to have these trees wrap around, and this can be tricky because we're going from different fields of view. There are different points, areas of depth in this painting that we're going to be working with one element, the trees. This is something you just kind of have to feel out and hope you get it right. And you can kind of play with it over time and maybe get better. I don't think I quite got it right. It does look a little bit wonky, but we can try again next time. No worries. And I'm using a fan brush for this part. I'm envisioning some pine trees here. And the fan brush, with it's got a long, thin bristles. And that can be really helpful for doing these little pine trees. Makes some really nice textures on the page. If you don't have one, that's fine. You can use a different brush and it'll do a similar effect. You might just have to figure out how to do that in a different way. And maybe I'll do that in a future video. Now we're adding a darker color over the top of that original sort of lighter emerald green color that we did to start with those trees. And this is going to add some texture to them and look like there's a few layers of trees. We're going to get some nice texture, some nice colors in there. Now we're going to start laying in the ground and figure out where that river ends up living. Just mixing up a little bit of a color for that. And I really just experiment with these colors. Something that makes me feel nice that day. I know I want it to be green. I know I want some elements of red in there. So I just throw a little bit of that there and see what happens. And when you're mixing colors, you can always change it. And if you run out of a paint when you're mixing a color and painting with it, don't worry. Just mix up another color, and if it's not exactly the same, it'll be fine. It might even turn out to look nice having a couple different shades of the same color. Now I remembered that these trees on the right side, they're going to have a shadow if we have our light coming from the right side. So I'm going to put in a little bit of a darker green for the shadow of those trees. And the opposite of that, we're going to have kind of a brighter green color on the left side of that riverbank. Now maybe I don't do it so perfectly in this one, having it significantly brighter, but maybe that's something to think about for the next painting. Now we're just going to blend that a little bit, put some texture to it, make sure that shadow is not too solid. Now we saw we kind of left some area for our river, but got a little bit messed up. Don't need to worry about that. We can find our river again. I just decided to go with a nice blue base for our river. I really like that strong blue color. Now I don't quite like how that river looks, so I decided to go over it with some green. And like that, the ground's back there again. And remember, you can just keep changing this if you don't like it. You can add a second fork to your river. You can add all sorts of things. Maybe there's a lake at the end of your river. Maybe there's even a little waterfall. I'm sure we'll be trying a little bit of a waterfall in some future paintings. I'm going to be really excited about that. I love painting waterfalls. I decided to put a little bit of a bank on this river. I thought it was nice to have a little bit of a separation between the river and the grass. There would probably be some dirt there, so that's what I decided to put there in my little world. If you don't like that, you don't have to put that in your world. Or if you really like it, you can put more. Now, I thought at this point that we needed to frame this painting a little bit more. And what I mean by that is drawing your attention to the center of the painting, which is where the great majority of our depth in our painting is. And by drawing your eye there, you see the full extent of the depth of the painting. You look at that river, see it going off into the distance, you see those mountains, and hopefully you see that sunset. I just kind of layered some brush strokes with some tapping motions there to put these bushes in. Now I'm just tapping over the top with some of the same colors that I have in the sky. You can use different colors if you want, but a good principle to stand by is putting a light color on a dark color. And it's good to put down that dark color first so you have some shadows. And hopefully we get some things that look like leaves and twigs and those sorts of things. And And after we're done with that, we're going to go back to the river and just scrub in a little bit of a color to make it look like there's some action going on in that river, like it's flowing. And with that, we're going to almost have a finished painting here. I'm glad you could join me today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you painted along with me today, I hope you had some fun. Until next time.